A whistleblower tells Project Veritas that Facebook is secretly censoring vax concerns. Joe Biden's ATF picks proposal would ban most American rifles. We also have LA County Sheriff vowing to fix the encampment issue and homelessness issue in Venice Beach. And the media can't stop drooling over Trump. And I have a lot to say about that. Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Before we get into our lead story today, please take a moment right now to hit that like button. It really does help the YouTube algorithm push my video out there to viewers who have not seen my content or my channel. And if you want to support a new conservative talk show like the Bald Brad Show, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It is for free. It doesn't cost you anything, but also hit the bell notification button so you're notified whenever we go live, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that being said, our lead story of the day comes from MRC TV, and it is titled Whistleblowers Tell Project Veritas of Facebook's Effort to Secretly Censor Vax Concerns. This is written by Nick Kanagas, and hopefully I'm saying his last name right. It starts off with saying, "You have had any inkling in the last year or so that social media companies are silencing dissent when it comes to the Chinese coronavirus and the vaccine. Project Veritas may have some answers for you." According to two Facebook whistleblowers that have reportedly come forward to speak out about the social media giant has been doing concerning itself algorithms during the pandemic. Facebook has adjusted their algorithm to demote content in order to drastically reduce user experience to vaccine hesitancy, VH, in comments. Veritas founder James O'Keefe spoke with the whistleblowers under the conditions of anonymity and was given the internal documents that have circulated within Facebook. It's quoted saying, "They are, Facebook, trying to control this content before it even makes it onto your page, before you even see it," the whistleblower told O'Keefe. The whistleblower then went into detail about how Facebook manipulates their algorithms to control the content both Facebook and Instagram users see in their timeline. The thing is that most people think of when talking about algorithms is that it just some sort of computer or robot, as the whistleblower put it, combining Facebook and Instagram for what the algorithm indicates they should be looking at. However, the whistleblower's document about the alleged VH score algorithm indicated that some of the Facebook employees that worked on the algorithm in question are only a few clicks away from CEO Mark Zuckerberg himself in the Facebook hierarchy. The other whistleblower compared what Facebook does to its users to a relationship with somebody that's controlling and abusive in a sense. It's kind of like having a relationship with somebody that's controlling and abusive in a sense, like an abusive partner, not allowing their spouse to speak out about the things that are going on in their marriage or their relationship and limiting their voice, the second whistleblower told O'Keefe. It's very damaging from that sense. In response to Veritas's attempt for comment, Facebook only responded to the leaked documents as a whole, but didn't address any of the questions Veritas asked concerning the documents themselves. Which is typical. When Project Veritas exposes somebody, they always reach out afterwards or even during, and they hardly ever get a response or anything from whatever institution, company, or person that they're exposing. They never get anything back from them. But this wouldn't surprise any conservative. This wouldn't surprise any Republican to hear that Facebook, Instagram, or any of the big techs are doing some sort of censorship within their algorithm, because we already know that YouTube does something like that. Heck, I've had some of my viewers, even some of my subscribers, to say, look, I've hit the like button 6 times. The thing's not working. I've even tried restarting my computer. I tried doing everything using a different web browser. It's still not allowing me to hit that like button. Also, with some of my subscribers, it said that YouTube actually unsubscribed you. And I'm not just hearing this from 1, 2, or 3, but definitely a handful of people, which is a good sample because I don't have that many subscribers. And so it makes me wonder why some of my subscriber count might be going down over time. Now, could that be somebody just unsubscribing? Absolutely. But it is a little weird that that is happening in conjunction with people messaging me saying, hey, look, I was subscribed. For some reason, it's saying I'm not subscribed anymore. I'm going to go ahead and subscribe again. Also, people having issues with the like button. But in regards to Facebook here, secretly censoring vax concerns, that doesn't surprise me either, especially when Facebook and big tech have certain agendas. I'm sure that they have politicians in their pocket. And so I don't think it's right that you're secretly censoring vax concerns. I think that, personally, if you're going to be a company and do this type of stuff, then just be open about it. People are still going to use your content or your service if they like it, if they enjoy it. And look, if they don't like the vax concerns that you're pushing and you're going to censor, then they're not going to use your platform. But I think big tech is big enough at this point that even if they start exposing themselves or just coming out and saying, look, yeah, we're censoring this, we don't want this on our feed, or we don't want this on our consumers' feeds, and basically it's kind of like, what are you going to do about it? And virtually they're kind of right, because there's really no other platform like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, these big techs. I don't want to say they have a monopoly over it, but they definitely have most of the market share on this stuff. So people don't really have anywhere else to go for the time being. I think that's going to change over time. I think you're going to have a lot of competitors, a lot of conservatives, Republicans, or even centrists coming in and creating a tech company that ultimately can compete with these other companies here. But there you have it, folks. I wanted to keep you updated on what Project Veritas is doing, because I believe James O'Keefe has been censored either on Twitter or YouTube, or maybe even both. But head over to Project Veritas website. They have a video on all of this. Go ahead and check it out. You can see the whistleblowers talk. But James O'Keefe doing the Lord's work over there at Project Veritas, exposing Facebook's effort to secretly censor vax concerns. Now, in other news, this comes from our friends over at the Daily Wire. If you're not already a subscriber, please go over and become a member today. It is written by Beth Bauman, and she titles it, Biden's ATF pick provides his definition of an assault weapon. His proposed ban would outlaw most rifles in America. And we've talked about this time and time again on my show, is that the left and the Democrats were saying, look, we're not trying to take away your weapons. We're not trying to get rid of the Second Amendment. And the conversation isn't about if you're trying to get rid of it now. It's about you trying to get rid of it in the future, and you're going to be doing it incrementally over time. Now, through the course of history, if you look at certain democracies, if you look at certain countries in the past, it wasn't that rights were taken away just right then and there on the spot. Sometimes that did happen, but it was a gradual infringement upon somebody's rights by removing slowly some of them, pieces of them, and then at some point, so much of it's gone that it practically doesn't exist at all, and that last little piece that's left over is the last little piece that gets removed. And we're seeing that with the Second Amendment. We're seeing that with the First Amendment. So it's slowly happening with specifically the Second Amendment here, where they're slowly encroaching, they're slowly removing parts of our Second Amendment. Oh, you don't need an AR-15, or oh, you don't need this, you don't need a bump stock, you don't need a high capacity magazine, you don't need this or that. And so what they're doing is they're slowly ripping apart that Second Amendment to where virtually you're going to be left with something that maybe doesn't even work or is not going to be effective. And what I mean by that specifically, and a lot of conservatives actually don't agree with me on this, but I am for fully automatic weapons. The reason for that, and let me explain before you get all crazy, the reason for that, if we're going to say as conservatives, which I believe in, as well as Republicans, that the reason for the Second Amendment is for government tyranny and so that we have a right to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government, then we need the weapons that could be utilized to go against a tyrannical government. So for us just having a semi-automatic rifle or pistol, that's not going to be enough. Now, I shouldn't say assault rifles, but automatic rifles were designed to kill human beings. That's what they were designed for. Not one round, but multiple rounds coming out, because it's a moving target and it can be hard to hit with just one single round. So you created and developed an assault weapon that is a multiple fired weapon, meaning a assault rifle that is automatic. So that's how you defend yourself against a tyrannical government. Now, could you defend yourself with a semi-automatic rifle? Yes, you could, which is why I'm glad I have it. But what I'm saying is that if you have a government or a foreign adversary coming in, you need to be able to defend yourself with a weapon that could work and be very advantageous against that foreign adversary or from a tyrannical government. Now, again, what I'm saying here too is in regards to this article is that the government will slowly take away your Second Amendment right, and we're seeing that in various aspects in various regards. It says here, during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on Wednesday, gun control lobbyist turned ATF nominee David Chipman struggled to provide his definition of an assault weapon, even though he has previously advocated for an assault weapons ban. When he eventually provided his definition, Senator Tom Cotton pointed out that the nominee's definition would ban most rifles in America. It says here, Senator, An assault weapon would be in the context of the question you asked, what Congress defines it as, Chipman replied. So you're asking us to ban assault weapons. We have to write legislation. Can you tell me what is an assault weapon? Cotton asked. How do you define it if you were the head of the ATF? How have you defined it over the last several years in your role as a gun control advocate? According to Chipman, he only can recall one instance where the department has defined what an assault weapon actually is. It's quoted by saying, or he's quoted in saying, ATF in that program has defined an assault rifle as a semi-automatic rifle capable of accepting a detachable magazine above the caliber of .22 or a 22, which would include a .223, which is, largely the AR-15 round. So they're targeting the AR-15, which is funny because the .223 goes in other rifles as well. And it's so odd to me that they're so focused on this AR-15. Now, it is the rifle of choice for many Americans, but the thing is that just on the outside, it looks scary. You can have a rifle that doesn't look scary, kind of looks archaic, and will hold a .223 in it. So I don't think he really knows what he's talking about when it comes to firearms, and he's just targeting the AR-15 because that's what the mass media is pushing. And by the way, just because you get rid of the AR-15, let's say they actually do away with it, it's a full ban and everything, it's still not going to stop mass shootings. There's other weapons that you can use. So it just doesn't make sense to me that you're going after a firearm, or say you got rid of all semi-automatic rifles. Just say you literally obliterated all of them across America. You still have handguns, right? So what are they going to do with handguns? They're going to use handguns to commit shooting. So it just doesn't make sense. You're not fixing the problem. You're not controlling the problem. You're not doing anything other than just getting rid of private citizens, law-abiding citizens' right to defend themselves with the gun that they choose. They have every right to use an AR-15. They have every right to choose an AR-15, and it's not the government's job to infringe on a weapon or firearm that American citizens decides to choose. And again, I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment because I think that the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment as well as all the other amendments, and most importantly, it stops your own government from being tyrannical against you, and you have every right to fight back against that tyrannical government. And I think that has a possibility of happening in the next 100 to 200 years. If you look at historical, we are an outlier as a democracy and as a republic. Again, we're a vast outlier of democracies and republics that have lasted as long as we have. So to think that this would never happen is a very, very foolish statement. History does tend to repeat itself, as many of you know. You've all taken history classes, but your history classes have always taught you. Your history teachers have always told you. So with history repeating itself and seeing that we're an outlier, there is a higher probability of us ultimately having a tyrannical government at some point in the future, and we need to be able to defend ourselves. Could we defend ourselves with a semi-automatic rifle? Yes. Could we defend ourselves better with an actual machine gun or a assault rifle that is fully automatic? Absolutely, we could, which is why I am for fully automatic rifles. I know that goes against the grain, but again, if a fully automatic rifle is intended to kill a human being, and I'm worried about a tyrannical government rising up that's ultimately going to be fighting me against other human beings, I want to be able to protect myself. Now, that is very different. I understand that somebody could take that and commit a very big mass shooting, but you could do that with any semi-automatic rifle as well, or any semi-automatic handgun as well. So it's not stopping somebody from still committing a mass shooting. You're just basically looking at the difference between a fully automatic and semi-automatic rifle. You're looking at a matter of, I understand depending on the rate of the rifle and the fully automatic rifle compared to somebody using a finger to conduct a semi-automatic rifle shooting, the difference between how much firepower you can put out, I understand, is drastically different. All I'm saying is what I'm for and the reason why I'm for it, okay? Now, is my mind open to that being changed? Of course. But in terms of a tyrannical government, again, I think we should have the weapons that would help defend ourselves. Could we still defend ourselves with semi-automatic rifles? Absolutely. Cotton asked if Chipman wanted to ban any firearm larger than a 22 that has a detachable magazine. Chipman reiterated that his definition was solely for rifles. You asked me if ATF had used this term, and I was sharing with you my knowledge of a program in which ATF has defined this term, and it is the Demand Letter 3 program, the nominee explained, and that rifle is a semi-automatic rifle capable of accepting a detachable magazine with a round greater than a 22 caliber. I'm amazed that you might be the definition of an assault weapon that would basically cover every single modern sporting rifle in America today, Cotton replied. And that's actually a very strategical way that he worded that, modern sporting rifle, because a lot of leftists and Democrats think, and also even kind of the younger generation, think that the Second Amendment's for hunting. And so they're like, well, you don't need a fully automatic rifle for hunting. But that's not what it was for. And by the way, that comes actually from my government teacher way back when I was in high school, stated that. And by the way, I loved my government teacher, was not on obviously the Republican side or conservative side of the aisle, but that was what he talked about in class. And it really struck me the wrong way because I was thinking that's not the purpose of the Second Amendment. Like, could we use firearms, of course, for hunting? And should we? Yes. But it's to protect oneself. But again, it's mainly to protect yourself from a tyrannical government, whether that's a foreign government or a domestic government, meaning the United States government. And so what he's doing is, well, he's kind of going after their argument, saying, well, you would get rid of almost all modern sporting rifles in America today. You're the ones that think it's for hunting, so why would you get rid of our hunting rifle? So very strategic here on Cotton. The ATF nominee stated the firearms industry previously used the term assault rifle in marketing materials, but changed the term to modern sporting rifle after the 1994 assault weapons ban. I've been in Walmarts and I've been in Cabela's. I don't know what that is, forgive me. And I've seen that you can find sections for pistols or handguns, or for shotguns or for rifles, because those are actual kinds of firearms, Cotton clapped back. Our conversation here illustrates that there really is no such thing as an assault weapon. That is a term that was manufactured by liberal lawyers and pollsters in Washington to try and scare the American people into believing that the government should confiscate weapons that are widely popular for millions of Americans to defend themselves and their families and their homes. According to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the Firearms Industry Trade Association, modern sporting rifles are chambered in 22, 223, which is a 5.56 and 45, 450 Bushmaster, and many other calibers. Even though gun control advocates take aim at AR-15s, they are actually chambered in calibers less powerful than common big game hunting cartridges, like the .306 Springfield and the .300 Win Mag. So basically what he's saying is, like what I was saying earlier, is you're trying to take away a gun that's caliber could be less lethal than, say, even a hunting rifle, but you're attributing it to an assault rifle or assault weapon, which virtually doesn't make sense when you're talking about assault weapon. I still don't know what the hell they're talking about when they say assault weapon. But he's saying, look, the caliber that's used in a hunting rifle is more powerful than some of the rifles that you're trying to ban. And virtually what you're saying right now is you're just trying to ban everything, which is ludicrous, which is nuts. But the left don't understand how weapons work. The left thinks that the government is made up of the people, right? According to Joe Biden, the government is us. Obama kind of had a similar theory as well. The government is not us, okay? We are not the government. The government is a separate entity than us, which is why we have every right to protect ourselves. That was a God-given right. And when you have a powerful government, when you have Democrats in charge, they want to do everything they can to remove that power so they have the power over you. It is a power struggle, and they know that if Americans have those firearms, they will never solely hold power because they know the American citizen can rise up against the government if the government ever becomes tyrannical. Now, what they're trying to do over time, and they don't see this, folks, they don't see this. Slowly, they're trying to impose on the Second Amendment. It does say comma, and then after it gives the word infringement, okay? They're infringing on our rights to bear arms. Now, I'm not saying they're going to get rid of that right in totality. I don't think that. But what I'm saying is that they don't even have a right to step on this type of issue. They don't have the right to come after our AR-15 rifles. They don't have a right to come after any of our rifles. They don't have any sort of right to do that because it's infringing on that. Now, their idea of this, I know I'm repeating myself, but I want to be clear on this. Their idea is, look, just because we get rid of the AR-15, we're not really infringing on your rights on the Second Amendment because you could still go to a gun shop and buy a different rifle. You could buy a different gun. Thus, we're not taking away your Second Amendment right because you could still own and purchase another firearm, just not this one. But the thing is, you're infringing because I chose to have that firearm. That's the firearm that I choose as the best suited for me to protect myself against you as the government or a foreign adversary or somebody else that's trying to hurt me or take my life or my family's life or my friend's life. So you are infringing still on my right because I have a right to own that specific firearm. So you are, in fact, infringing upon my Second Amendment right. Whether you agree with that or not, you are doing it by stopping me or effectively stopping me from owning a firearm, again, that I want to protect myself with. But the left don't get that. The Democrats don't get that. Just as long as you could buy another firearm, they're totally fine with it. They don't look at it as infringing. But again, once the AR-15 is gone, then they're going to go after another assault rifle. Then they're going to go after another firearm after that. And you're slowly going to see this encroachment, this infringement upon the Second Amendment. At some point, you're going to be left with nothing. And folks, you think I'm kidding here, and I'm not. This is actually a very scary thing that we're even talking about this stuff consistently year after year. We're talking about assault weapons ban. Again, I don't know what the hell that they're talking about when they say that. But if you're talking about assault rifle, I can get behind that and I can understand what you're talking about. But you creating a proposal here, especially under the Biden administration, and this is who Biden's trying to pick, it's a little bit scary that his proposal would outlaw most American rifles. So that's that from Daily Wire. We also have another article here from the Daily Wire. It is regarding my home state of California, specifically Los Angeles County, with the issue that's going on in Venice Beach with the homeless encampment problem. Folks, if you could see other YouTubers' videos on this stuff, this encampment is nuts. And by the way, it's not just in Venice. This is everywhere around Southern California. This isn't even probably the worst place in Southern California, and it's complete mayhem. You have tents being lit on fire every single week. You have people dying every single week in these tents from drug overdoses or just from, I don't want to say natural causes, but usually from doing some sort of drugs over time. You have people dying left and right. It smells bad down there. It smells like human feces and human waste. It's absolutely disgusting. But this comes from Jeffrey K. Wood, titled, LA County Sheriff Vows to Reclaim and Regulate Public Space at Venice Beach, Blasts Gutless Politicians Over Homeless Encampments. Absolutely right. These politicians are gutless. Now, what I heard before I go into this, what I actually heard on my way home from work was that the reason why they didn't do this before was because the politicians had a vast array of lawyers that were waiting for the police officers to come in and do anything to a homeless person, and then they would sue the state or the county, and then they would claim all this money. Now, my thing is that they're going to do that anyways, right? Even now that he's going to come in and do this, the LA County Sheriff, Alex Villanueva, is once he goes in, they're still going to fire those lawsuits. So there's no reason as to why you didn't do this before. You created a massive crap storm, literally, in the state of Southern California, or just California in general, because I know this issue is up north as well, with this homelessness problem. Guys, I'm not exaggerating when I say this is truthfully unbelievable what is going on. It is that bad. And I've asked you guys if you wanted me to take my camera down and just kind of film some stuff around downtown LA. You said, so if I can find a day to get up there, I will go and just film out of the car, because I ain't getting out. That place is all messed up. If you see what's going on, you'll see hookers, prostitutes, just drugged out people walking with practically no clothes on, just aimlessly in the streets. You'll have full furniture, bedding, dressers, lamps, you have virtually an entire room or household on the side of the street, and sometimes it's overlapping into the street, and you got to kind of drive and maze around it. And no regulation going on here. So it says, Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva is blasting career-elected politicians who he says are seeking higher office for failing to adequately address the increase of homelessness encampments in the region, particularly in the city of LA. Villanueva walked the Venice Beach boardwalk with the Sheriff's Department Homeless Outreach Services team on Tuesday and described the pop-up tents that have sprouted up throughout the world-famous tourist destination as a hot mess. He spoke with residents of the neighborhood, business owners, and people experiencing homelessness about his plan to compassionately reclaim and regulate public space for the community. At last count in January 2020, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority estimated there were approximately 2,000 homeless people in the Venice neighborhood. Venice ain't that big, folks. 2,000 people. A 57% increase over the previous year. Officials did not conduct a count in 2021 due to the pandemic, but experts expect those numbers to continue climbing into 2023. Villanueva said part of the influx has been drifters lured from other states. And the reason why they're having drifters come in is because of the politicians ultimately actually giving them free stuff, saying, look, California is going to give you, we have medical, you could walk in our institutions and receive health care. There's going to be people that are going to support you. If you move into this encampment area, we're not going to ask you to leave. You can sit there and basically virtually run free, do whatever you want. And that is why ultimately you have people coming in. By the way, that's not from me saying that. That's from actual homeless people coming in and saying that. It says here, many longtime Venice residents say the situation is worse than they have ever witnessed. My job is to let local law enforcement and local government handle their problems, Villanueva told one man who expressed concern about a recent shooting in the area. If they are not doing it, I got to step up at some point, and I've got to decide it's not working. We need more help. While engaging with another community member, Villanueva accused LA City leaders of pursuing strategies that prevent the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, from fulfilling its public safety mission. He said he had complete faith in LAPD if they are not handcuffed, hogtied, and gagged. But when you handcuff them, they no longer have the capacity to regulate public space, he added, so they're dealing always with the aftermath. And we're seeing this consistently up and down the West Coast here in Washington, Oregon, California, where you have these politicians that are telling these police departments not to do their job, to not enforce the law, to not regulate things. And that's creating a massive issue on these West Coast, not just with homelessness, but with allowing Antifa, BLM to roam free, light businesses on fire, destroy public and private property, hurt citizens, hurt business owners. They're just allowing these people to commit actual crimes, sometimes heinous crimes, rape, murder, arson, and just allowing them to roam free. And Villanueva is basically saying here, look, it is the politicians. It's those that are in power. They're not allowing us to do our jobs. They're basically gagging us and handcuffing us and saying, look, you cannot remove these people from the public space. Even if they don't have a right to be there on the public space, we're not going to allow you to remove them. And so now you have this massive homelessness issue, not just in Venice. This is widespread all across LA County. I implore you, again, if those that live in California, make a trip down to downtown LA and let me know if you feel safe walking around there. It's absolutely gross and it's disgusting. I've lived here my entire life and I've seen the transformation. I've worked in Hollywood. I've worked in North Hollywood, West Hollywood, downtown LA. I've worked all over the place. It is absolutely a poo-poo mess. Literally, with feces on the streets, syringes on the streets, razor blades on the streets, drug deals happening, hookers walking everywhere, prostitutes walking everywhere. By the way, you might run into one by accident because they're so drugged up. This happened to me about 2 years ago. I was up in LA and I was driving home, and this lady with almost no clothes on, luckily I was going slow through this encampment, literally just walks out in the front of my car. I almost hit her, meaning I had to slam on the brakes, and she just aimlessly keeps walking, just a complete gaze out there, not knowing what's going on, probably methed up. But it is a massive issue going on here, and I'm glad to see our elected sheriff is finally doing his job. And you know what? Hopefully there's no repercussions on this. I think a lot of people are going to stand by it because I think even the leftists and the Democrats realize they created a massive issue here. The visit followed a tweet from Villanueva last week that read, "I can only sit on the sidelines for so long waiting patiently for the city and county to do something about homelessness." The sheriff posted the message on May 18th, the same day the Los Angeles Fire Department announced that a homeless man had been arrested on suspicion of starting the Palisades fire about 18 miles west of LA that burned more than 1,150 acres. The blaze resulted in mandatory evacuations orders for about 1,000 people, threatening about 500 homes. And this is not the only fire that is started by these homeless encampments. Like I said, this is a weekly thing, but some of these people obviously have mental problems. They're deranged. There's a lot of things going on in these people's lives where they need help. They need to be able to seek help. And we have institutions that do that and provide help for these people. But if you don't sit there and kind of force them in the right direction, then they're ultimately going to wind up on the streets like they are here, or ultimately creating fires like we see in the Palisades fire that destroyed basically 1,100 acres. It just creates more and more problems, which ultimately is going to create more and more problems for the city and the taxpayer, because you're going to have to pay for all these services now to go ahead and take care of a problem that should have never happened in the first place. But that's what's going on in California. It virtually all up and down the West Coast, but thankfully Villanueva, our LA County Sheriff here, is going to rise up to the occasion and hopefully fulfill his vow to get rid of these homeless encampments. Lastly, this also comes from the Daily Wire. It is written by Ben Johnson, and he titles it, "The Media Can't Quit Trump. nearly 40% of all stories about Joe Biden mention Donald Trump because they're still suckling at the teat, man. They love Trump. It's so funny, too. They're like, can this guy just go away? We need Trump out. You had CNN technical director Charlie Chester coming out and saying, well, we effectively got Trump out. We did this against Trump. We manufactured and created propaganda, fear cells. We manufactured Trump having not only mental illness, but health issues, and that he wasn't fit to be in office. So if you want to see all of that stuff, go over to Project Veritas, because they expose CNN for what they're doing, being a propaganda machine, basically manufacturing false stories about our 45th president of the United States. But at the same time, CNN needs this man. They need him at that wall. You want me at that wall, because Trump is the one that's going to bring in the numbers for them. But now that Trump isn't around, CNN is basically losing all their views. There's a bunch of YouTube channels out there, conservative channels, that get more views than freaking CNN does. Heck, Nickelodeon, Nick at Night, gets more views than CNN. But it says here, although he's been out of office for 126 days, who's counting, the legacy media cannot stop talking about former President Donald Trump. Even as Joe Biden's presidency began to hit its legislative stride, the media still mentioned the name of the 45th president in about 4 out of every 10 news stories written about Biden administration, which is truly astonishing, because if you think about it, other than basically Trump's presidential desk site that he created, where he comes out with his own almost tweets in a way, or he comes out with a memo that says kind of his thoughts of the day or thoughts of the week, he's not on any social media. He's been banned from basically all across the internet on things. So can you imagine if he was still on Twitter, if he was still on Facebook, if he was still on YouTube, if he was still out there in the ether, in the social media world, on how much of the news stories would revolve around him? And so them claiming to be putting him in 4 out of every 10 news stories, you know that number would probably be almost double if he was in the news more. So they're really reaching here on Trump news, because you almost don't hear anything from the guy or even his family. The guy's virtually non-existent now, which is kind of sad to see. I would imagine we're going to start seeing a lot more Trump in the summer, because I believe he's going to start doing some rallies here. But the news just still, they need him, man. They need him. And you know what? We as a country need him, to be quite honest with you, because what Joe Biden's doing in this country is absolutely terrible. And they say that stuff about Trump. Oh, what Trump did to this country is absolutely deplorable. It's just absolutely irreprehensible. But it's not. What Trump did with this country was great. Was he a little bit damaging on the social fabric side of things? Absolutely. But we knew that was going to happen, because we knew Trump's phraseology. We knew his lingo going in when he was running for president. So it comes to no shock to any conservative, any Republican, on the type of man Trump was. But the man was a businessman, and he got stuff done. He really did get stuff done. Look at where we are as a country now. Are we better now than we were 4 years ago? You know, that old phrase from the Reagan era. No, we're not. We're not better today than we were when Trump was in office. We're way worse now than when Trump was in office. So Biden's obviously leading us down the wrong road as our leader, which is sad, because we should root for Joe Biden. I really do want his success. Just because he's a Democrat, just because he's a career politician, doesn't mean that I don't want him to succeed. He is my president. I did not vote for him. I would never vote for him. But as a country, we need him to do well. We need him to be a sentient human being. We need him to be strong, but he's not being strong, which is so frustrating, because that's when you're going to have other foreign adversaries, China, Russia, all these other places, ultimately kind of pushing us in a certain direction that we shouldn't be pushed in, because we are the most dominant power on the face of the earth. But you need a dominant president to move that power and use it accordingly and responsibly. Even as Joe Biden's presidency began to hit its letters. Oh, I read that already. Forgive me. The Pew Research Center analyzed all the media coverage of President Joe Biden's first 60 days, which ended March 21st. Who's counting? Including left-leaning, right-leaning, and mixed audience news outlets, and found that Donald Trump cropped up in the media reports across the board. Trump's dominance of Biden's news cycle ran from the first day until the last day of the study, Pew found. Trump figured into 72% of all stories that first week of Biden's presidency, and as many as half of all stories for the first 6 weeks of the newly inaugurated President Biden-Harris administration. Even as the media focused on the COVID-19 stimulus bill and Biden blasted Texas and Mississippi Neanderthal thinking for lifting their mask mandates during the 7th week of his presidency, man, that didn't age well, right? The whole Neanderthal thinking. Texas and Mississippi are doing great. And they opened up way before anybody else did. Not so Neanderthal thinking anymore, right, Biden? The media dragged former President Trump into 30% of all stories about his successor. Trump media mentions top 40% in each of the last 2 weeks of the study. But Pew noted a certain kind of media story left Trump out of the picture, stories about COVID-19. Of course, because the Democrats and the left don't want to say that Trump had everything to do with COVID-19 ultimately being eradicated or done away with, or what I'm really talking about is the vaccinations here. Trump was the reason for the vaccinations. Actually, to go even further than that, Big Pharma was the reason for the vaccinations. Thank God we have Big Pharma, because they created a vaccination freaking in a matter of months here, and now almost half of America is already vaccinated. So kudos to them and kudos to Trump for basically saving the globe here on this freaking pandemic. He's our savior. The media mentioned Trump in the majority of 56% of all stories that had nothing to do with the coronavirus global pandemic. And even more, 61% of stories that mentioned COVID-19 in a minor way, according to the Pew. But the percentage falls to 34% among stories that mentioned COVID-19 in a major way. While the media have portrayed the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines across the nation as a major success to the Biden administration, they often fail to note how President Trump's Operation Warp Speed played a key role in allowing for the vaccine creation in a record-breaking time, which is absolutely right. All Biden had to do to be successful as a president was just come in and do nothing and just ride Trump's coattails, and he would have been extremely successful. Everything was shut down. All the regulations were done away with. So once the economy opened back up, you just had to sit back, put your hands back, Joe, have milk, and have a little bit of nap time, and you would have had a killer economy. All you had to do was keep Trump's border wall construction in place, his immigration laws and policies in place, and you wouldn't have an immigration issue. Once again, Joe, you're sitting back, not having to do anything, have a little nap, poot around the house, do whatever you need to do, read a book. Lord only knows what you do on your free time, but you don't have to do anything. You had the easiest job as any incoming president in this past 100 years, to where you didn't have to do jack bleep, and you could have just been extremely successful. North Korea was under control. China was somewhat under control. Russia was somewhat under control. We had great stuff going on in the Middle East with everybody signing peace agreements, having kumbaya. And then you come in and all this chaos and crisis starts happening. You didn't got to do anything, man. You created this whole crap storm for yourself. Biden also took credit for administering 100 million vaccines to the American people, falsely claiming that unspecified members of the media had proclaimed the feat was impossible. In fact, the United States had been on target to meet that goal before Biden ever took office. Yet the media primarily dismissed Trump's statements affirming his role in the nation's groundbreaking move toward herd immunity. And Trump said this would happen. We all knew this would happen, that Biden, the Democrats, the left would take ultimately all the award, all the, what's the word I'm looking for? All the affirmation, basically, that, oh, we're the ones that did this. We're the ones that got 100 million vaccines out. We basically had this whole rollout plan. This was our doing. When in reality, Trump kind of said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Bada bing, bada boom, create a whole strategy, a whole plan for everything. And just the president needed to come in, or the incoming president, meaning Biden, just go, look at it. Cool. Let's roll with it. So he didn't have to do anything. It's titled here. Here's some of the story headlines. Trump claims credit for vaccines. Some of his backers don't want to take them, wrote the New York Times. Trump takes credit for vaccine rollout, one of the greatest miracles of the ages, reported The Hill. Trump is desperate to get credit for COVID-19 vaccines, but his political heartlands are reluctant to actually take them, said a headline in Business Insider. Late night talk show host Stephen Colbert even called Donald Trump claims and Operation Warp Speed pathetic. It's amazing that what's going on with late night talk shows. I used to enjoy late night talk show. I used to love it. I used to actually stay up in high school and a little bit in the college until it started getting super lefty on stuff. I thought it was funny. I thought it was entertaining, but now it's just all anti-Republican, all anti-conservative. It's very political, and it's weird because as a nation, as an American citizen, we look at, or at least I would think, look at these late night shows as a way to get away from all that. You know, we're about to go to sleep. It's late night after work. We want a few laughs. We want to see our favorite celebrities. We want to see what they talk about and see them make wise jokes like Jay Leno does, and kind of the old timers like Conan O'Brien, all those old guys. But now you got these new guys coming in like Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, James Corbin. You got all these guys that are just extremely political, and they're only political to one side. I'm all for making jokes about conservative presidents, conservatives all day. But the thing is, it just gets kind of tiring after a while when it's like, it's not really that funny anymore, where you're just beating the crap out of conservatives and Republicans consistently. And A lot of it's not even funny, and I laugh at everything, sadly. Meanwhile, the media have let Joe Biden falsely claim that we didn't have a vaccine when he became president and allowed Dr. Anthony Fauci to say authorizing the vaccine was the best decision I've ever made. The Pew study also found that the media have given Joe Biden less negative coverage than any other commander-in-chief since Pew started monitoring the coverage nearly 30 years ago. And that's no shock. They're rubbing Biden's shoulders left and right, man. The media are totally implicit on making this guy look good. Can you imagine if they did the same coverage and treatment like they did with Donald Trump, where Joe Biden would be at? His approval rating would be way lower than Donald Trump. Trump was successful on top of having to battle the media day in, day out, 24 hours a day, where Joe Biden doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to talk to the press, you guys. Or when he does talk to the press, he already has them pre-selected and is given the questions ahead of time, and he still struggles to answer them. The guy can't even read off his own notes, you guys. And the media are just totally cool with it. Nothing to see here, man. No, what do you mean deranged? What do you mean the guy's not all there? He looks fine to me. Playing golf, the ball goes backwards. What do you mean he's okay? The guy doesn't know his wife's name. He doesn't know his staff's name. He's called Harris president how many times now? But you won't hear that from the media because the media have an agenda. They have a narrative, and it's not going to stop. And we need to be those that look out for that agenda, look out for that narrative, and ultimately take back the culture by having shows like this right here and supporting shows like The Bald Brad Show, supporting shows like The Daily Wire and other conservative outlets out there. So with that being said, you guys, that is all the news I have for you today. Make sure, again, you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to The Bald Brad Show, folks. Hope you are having a lovely week, and I will see you next time here on The Bald Brad Show.